All right. So we are live. So apologies, internet land, for the slight delay, but we are here, and this is our last discussion, our final Welcoming Spaces discussion. We're here already. We've reached the end, but of course, it's not the end. It's just the beginning for all of us as well, and in our learning journeys. My name is Tanya. I'm the community developer here at Elevate NWO. And joining me today for this final discussion on welcoming spaces is Renee, as well as our elder and knowledge keeper, Linda Barkman. And just for those who have not been following through the entire series, Renee, if you would mind introducing yourself.
Hi, I'm Renee Boucher, and I'm a prevention worker out of the Ontario Aboriginal HIV/AIDS strategy here in Thunder Bay, and we partner with Elevate NWO on quite a few things, and this is one of the things that I've been working with them on.
Great, thank you. And we're joined today also by Linda Barkman, who is our elder here at Elevate. Linda has graciously said that she will open us in a good way. So I'll send it over to Linda to introduce herself and open up today's discussion.
Hi, good day. I'm Linda Barkman, Elevate. I'm an elder at Elevate. Just like to smudge everybody first. And as I smudge, you just clear your thoughts. You just want good thoughts. Just say Miigwech Creator for a beautiful day. Even though it's still cold outside, we are here and we are blessed that we can help each other to keep warm in one way or another, to know that we are not alone in this fight of cold and everything else that we are experiencing. Miigwech Creator, Miigwech. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Linda. I can almost smell the sage coming through the computer at me. It's amazing, actually, that sort of visceral response. I know we've been working from home a lot, and when we meet at Elevate, then you will often start us off with the smudge, and as soon as I can see the smoke sort of wafting through the air, I can really literally almost smell it, and I want to pull it through to me. It's wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it starts off the morning the way calm and calm, cool, and collective.
Yeah, that's right.
Sometimes
Centers
not so
us.
much. Yeah, it does. It centers. It helps.
So today we are going to be talking about a couple of things. We're going to be talking about individual actions that people can take to create welcoming spaces for people living with HIV, whether that is within their organizations, within their communities, within their families, or amongst a circle of friends. These types of actions, being able to take some individual action or tangible action, is really important for creating sort of the foundational supports for people to feel loved and welcomed and safe and supported. In the post that we posted on Tuesday, we talked about a few different ways that this can be done. So we talked about, education, keeping your knowledge up to date, being open and curious. So, responding with openness when somebody talks to you about something related to HIV or sexual health that maybe you don't know about, instead of, closing up and becoming defensive or, oh, I don't know. It's okay if you don't know, just, remain open. Allyship, so being a good ally, being a person who can speak up for other people or with other people when you know that something is happening that doesn't feel right or isn't right. Normalizing HIV, and we talked a little bit about language. So making sure that you're saying person living with HIV, we're using person first language rather than saying HIV infected or AIDS patient, or words like that are a little bit outdated and can be quite stigmatizing. Using the term HIV rather than the term AIDS, unless you're actually talking about somebody who's living with AIDS, or you're actually talking about AIDS itself, and understanding the difference between HIV and AIDS. typically we use HIV now, unless we're really talking about AIDS, just because it's not as frequent. Like people don't, most of the time somebody living with HIV isn't going to develop AIDS or isn't living with AIDS because of the way that treatment has progressed. So making those distinctions can be really helpful in destigmatizing your language. So we're going to talk about some of those things. And then we're also going to be talking about the role of elders. Elders play a really huge role in communities. And I think it's, having Linda being a part of our Elevate community has really made a huge difference to our members and the people that we serve. And so I thought it was really important to bring her perspective into the conversation today. So in terms of individual actions, I wanted to ask both of you, Renee and Linda, what do you think is the most important action? So if somebody can only, I can do one thing. I can do one thing today to help reduce stigma. What is the most important action that people can take to reduce stigma?
So from the perspective of somebody living with HIV, so I get to see the perspective of someone living with and the perspective of somebody working as a service provider. And like yourself, this conversation around creating welcoming spaces, how can we facilitate that and help that happen? So I think on an individual level, when I think about providing services to somebody, and what I would like to see myself as somebody living with HIV and as a service provider, what would I think that would look like is going to maybe be slightly different. It's going to be probably based on my values and the way I think about things. So I think the most important thing a person could do is educate yourself, and like you were just saying, just your opening comments were a educational piece in itself, and I think it's really important to understand the basics around HIV. Don't make assumptions, because we have come a long way. And unless you're actually involved in this work, you may not know some of those things. So again, sometimes we those of us that work in this field tend to forget that we use language that can be confusing to people because there's so many acronyms, right? And so I think it's important as an individual to get a basic understanding of HIV and learn the latest updates, because we've come a long way. This conversation would have probably been a lot different 10 years ago. Even 20 years ago, it would have been a lot different. And we've learned a lot. So I think we wouldn't have time to even just go over that. But I think it's important. Take the time to get the latest information. That's what my suggestion would be.
Great. And we will, to facilitate that, for folks, we will post a couple of really good links in the chat. After this discussion is finished, I'll post some links where you can go to get some up-to-date information and reliable information, because the internet is full of all kinds of information, and sometimes you maybe don't know where to go for reliable information. So we'll make sure that we do that. Linda, same question.
What was the question? I was just listening to Renee when Renee was saying that. I lost all track what the question was. I like the answer though.
Yeah. What do you think, from what you've seen in your work with people who are living with HIV or people who are even at risk of acquiring HIV, what's the most important thing that individuals can do to reduce stigma?
Oh my, that's yeah, like Renee was saying, education I think is the most. I don't think it is, but it is. It's the most stigma breaking tool that anybody can use. But there are some that just it's either fast tracks for them so fast that they didn't even think about what it really is, you know, like how do you catch it? How do you, how would you get Hep C or HIV? You know, like there's one that reminds me of that is about a mosquito. This lady, a lady that I know, beautiful lady, she went home and she was sitting around a campfire, and the mosquito landed on her, and the mosquito flew away. Well, the people that were around the campfire, they all just moved away really fast. And I don't even want to think how she might have felt, but that just goes to show on how some people are not educated in what needs to be learned about all this, on how you can get it, or how, you know, like not even by a mosquito bite. And if they would have been if they were taught, or even would listen, you know, that wouldn't have happened. But that just goes to show how education can help. You know, like you don't need to have that. You're going through enough already without having to go through some more.
Right.
You know, and yeah. So education, and education, and taking it out, like people talk about certain things, and you know, like that subject goes underneath the pile most of the time, you know, because it's some places it's not good to talk about stuff like that.
Right.
So
it's related to sex.
Yeah,
Talk about
yeah,
that.
you're not supposed to talk about that, or you're not supposed to talk about anything that's going to harm everybody else. You get cancer. Well, I'm sorry, you got cancer, right? But when you find out that somebody has Hep C, it's like, go away.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Hide it, sweep it under the rug, if you want to say it that way. Yeah. But
sometimes I think about it in terms of our physical reaction, and you're right. Like when somebody says, "Oh, you know, I've got cancer," then your first reaction is to open up and move towards that person.
Yeah.
But when someone says, "Oh, I have HIV," oftentimes the opposite happens: is we back away and we close off. And so that, I think education is the big difference there. Is we know a lot about cancer. We know how, I mean, it used to be, ooh, the C word, and we didn't talk about it and we didn't say anything about it, but we've learned so much about it. And it's, you know, fairly common now for people to get some form of cancer, for a lot of people to get some form of cancer. We know a lot about it. So we don't have that closing off and hiding anymore, where that hasn't quite happened yet with HIV. And we need to have that education so that we can open up and move towards people when they tell us.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, and Linda, you reminded me of something when you were talking about around the campfire. I think another piece to that is that empathy plays an important role. You know, we need to, when we're using our words, we need to recognize, well, how would I feel? How would I feel if that were me? And I think that's an important part of any discussion. And Tanya, you reminded me when you were talking about cancer. You know, as the years went on, you started hearing more and more about cancer, and more people were becoming impacted by that, whether it was themselves or a family member. And people were starting to recognize, wow, you know, if that was me, this is how I would feel. So, you know, when we're talking about HIV, we need to think about it in those terms. We may not know somebody, but we need to ask ourselves, but what if it was me? What if I did have a family member? Yeah.
Yeah. And that actually leads me really nicely into the next question. Renee, is this question about how do we respond? So what are some positive ways that people who aren't living with HIV can respond when someone discloses to them? You know, what is really helpful? What has been a really positive experience for you?
So I think when I think about that, I'm just reminded of a peer yesterday. We were kind of talking about that, and when somebody comes to you and discloses their HIV, we should think about it. This person is telling you something very private. It's a gift they're given to you by sharing this very um, um, traumatic diagnosis with you that really um, can be hard to talk about. And if somebody's disclosing that, they're reaching out. They're reaching out to you, and sharing some of their own knowledge. And I can remember the first time I disclosed to somebody about my HIV. I had such a fear. I was so afraid of what the reaction was going to be. And when I did disclose my status to the person, I just had visions of them running away, running, getting out of the vehicle and taking off in the other direction. And it wasn't like that at all. You know, I had all these fears, and it didn't turn out. So I had a very positive experience. This person, in fact, brought me to a friend of his place, and they were dealing with somebody who had progressed to AIDS, and he introduced me, and you know, it really felt great to know that I wasn't alone. Like, so you know, I had a very positive experience, but there are times when people don't get that reaction, and so I think we need to talk about, you know, the positives that can come out of it, but recognize that when people do that, most times it's out of fear or it's out of their lack of understanding of what it is you're telling them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's important to really recognize that positive experience that you had, and how had it gone another way, like how that one positive interaction was able to allow you to connect even further
Mm-hmm.
with other people in the community, connections that you would not have otherwise made. And had that interaction gone more negatively, it may have had a really big impact on your, you know, your ability to disclose later, or your choice to disclose later, and your ability to connect and you know, get the things that you needed to stay well.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we only have one chance with people, and we have to be able to make it as positive as possible. There's a really good, I'm just going to very quickly share my screen, because there's a really good infographic that that I found through a project called the Stigma Project. And it has some examples of like things you could, if someone discloses to you, things that you should avoid saying and things that are helpful to say. So I'm just going to really quickly screen share that, if I can do that. Yes, there it is. There. So again, you know, all of the things on this one side are, you know, things to avoid. You know, how long do you have? How did you get it? Who gave it to you? And I'm sure, Renee, like these are probably questions that are not unheard of to you, that people have probably said these things. Why am I not surprised? Like, oh gosh, I'm not going to get it, am I? So those are all, you know, really fear-based, really, you know, this closing off and you know, responding quite negatively, moving away from people. And then on this other side, things that you can say, or things that are helpful to say: you're not alone. Have you started treatment? I'm here for you. Have you found a good doctor? Or even simply, I appreciate you telling me that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just that
Mhm.
is helpful. If you don't know what else to say, if you don't know anything about HIV and you don't know what else to say, I appreciate you telling me that, and I'm here for you. Or you don't have to know all the answers for a person. You know, most of the time people just want to know, like you said, Renee, that they're not alone.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stop sharing that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that resource is out there available if people want to use it or look at it or print it out or give it to friends or whatever.
I'm curious to know, and again, from the perspective of being a service provider, have you ever experienced, just by association of the work you do, and I'm asking this of you, Tanya, of that discrimination just being associated with HIV?
So I wouldn't say discrimination, but for sure people have, you know, you get things like, oh, that must be so hard, or they somehow feel sorry for me, and think that I must have like a really hard time doing my work. Or there's the assumption, and I know that like I haven't had this personally, but I know other people have had the assumption that they then must be HIV positive.
Mhm.
If you're working with people who are living with HIV, if you're working at an organization that specializes in HIV, then obviously you must be HIV positive. But like I haven't had that assumption made on me personally, but I have heard a lot of like, oh, that must be so hard. Like, no,
Yeah.
it's not actually that hard. It's actually pretty fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Well, I was at the hospital at the Emerge. I went in with a lady, but I I also do research work around it. So I was handing out my cards to one of the the workers at the hospital, and I says, I'm doing some research work. I work here, and she said it out loud where I was working, Elevate NWO. She said it out loud, and as she went to go say HIV and naming everything out that's on the card. Well, as soon as she's talking loud, as soon as some people heard that, they just backed away really slow, right? Like instead of the nice 6 feet, they're going even further away, right? And I'm just like, oh, I said I only worked there,
Like you can't catch it from saying the words.
No, and she was just like, oh, okay. But just to look at everybody, well, as soon as they said it, because I looked around and they looked at me, that looked like, oh my God, like the scared look, back off. Yeah. So yeah, just by her reading my card. Yeah. It's just what everybody thinks right away, right? So
yeah.
Yeah.
So when people have these reactions, you guys are leading this conversation so perfectly to align with the questions that I wanted to ask. Thank you. Ideal guests you are. When these kinds of things happen, how do we respectfully call people out, or call them in, as we might say, when we hear people say or do things that are stigmatizing, or maybe old information or misinformation or incorrect information? How do we do that as people who are not living with HIV, who do have a responsibility to be educated and be a good ally? How do we do that? How do we respectfully call people in?
I guess for me as somebody living with, and again, I don't always disclose my status, but when I hear misinformation or information that's very stigmatizing, I'll often take the opportunity to give them the correct information and just say, well, I'm not just rattling this off from wherever. There's actually some places where you can access this information and recognize that, again, I guess I come back to us. what if that were you? Is this how you would want to hear this information? Because if you think about it in that perspective, then you begin to understand how damaging it can be if it's wrong
Mhm.
information, and how it harms somebody. So I think I try my best to uh, give give the correct information. It's funny how we hear a lot about misinformation and how much harm it does, like even in today's day and age with the internet and all that. But you can just now Google stuff and usually get directed to the correct information. And I think we need to try to um, help the person or persons see why it's wrong, and why what they're saying can be harmful to others.
Mhm. I had um, something happened about 3 years ago. A friend of mine, she had found out about her daughter having HIV. Her daughter came home and started telling her mom about this, and her mom was very upset uh, because the first thing she thought in her head was, it's not going to be too long now that you're going to be go onto your next journey. And the mother was upset for the longest time, and it took good 2 months of her daughter getting pamphlets and talking to her mother and telling her, this is not a death sentence like it used to be, right? It's she bought her friend home who was living with it for I think it was about more than 10 years. But the mother felt good about that later, just knowing that it's not a death sentence, and it's not something that you can catch like COVID. You can sneeze and you can get caught, catch it, right? But um, this is not. You can't catch it by sneezing. You can't catch it by kissing somebody, or and the mother felt better. So as it progressed down as the years went by, the mother happened to be in the same room with her daughter, with her daughter's in-laws. Well, there was a few of them that didn't know about this topic, and they just moved away from her right away. Well, the mother was pissed off at that, right? Like, how dare you treat my daughter like this? Like, just because she has this, it's not, you can't get it. Well, the mother ended up being the teacher, and now, yeah, it makes me cry just thinking about it today, because now she walks around proud that my daughter is here 15 years, 10 years already, not a death sentence.
No.
So now she walks alongside her daughter now too. I mean, just what education had to do, right? What education does. If you just sit down and take time. Yeah.
Yeah, and you'll hear many people living with HIV say HIV's become their teacher.
Mm.
And it has, in many aspects of my own life, become a teacher for me, because um, it it can be difficult at times, uh, but like, even though there was difficult times throughout my life living with HIV. Each moment in those times, there was always a lesson to be learned from that. And that's why I think, even today I still continue to learn. And there are challenges, but it's trying to figure out, what can I learn from this challenge, so that if I meet somebody who comes upon that challenge themselves, I can help them to understand, well, this is how I experienced it. So I think it's a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really lovely way of looking at it, really powerful way of looking at it, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to talk, I know we've been talking for a little bit already, but before we get too far and run out of time, Linda, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the role of elders and knowledge keepers. I mean, I know that you've been with Elevate for, I don't like not a super long time with Elevate as a staff member, but you've been working with us for quite a long time before you came on as a staff person. And I'm wondering what you think the role of elders and knowledge keepers are in creating safer spaces for Indigenous people who are living with HIV or who are, you know, at increased risk.
Acceptance is one of the first things that comes into my mind. Acceptance on who the person is, not what the person has, right? That person wasn't born with it, happened to came across it, but it doesn't make who that person is, right? I mean, that person is still somebody's son. That person is still somebody's daughter. That person is still, you know, is still well loved by somebody. So for me, I can't I can't deny anybody the creator. The creator doesn't deny anybody either, right? So when I welcome people in and they disclose to me, I just say welcome. You know, it's you need a safe space, whether with whatever you're living with, right? That's the last thing in the world that you need is somebody to say, no, you can't come and smudge, or no, you can't come and pray. You can't hold the sacred medicines, but those are the times when you need them the most, right? And you need them, I got them, I'll give you. And that's, the creator doesn't discriminate, is not racist, is not scared of anything. He's there for you. He's there. You need him. He needs you. So for somebody to say, no, you can't smudge. No, I don't want to hear you because you have what you're living with. That's not, that's pushing people away. That's even like more stigmatizing. That's adding more depression, more everything, just adding it on and on and on, just like a rubber band with a ball, and just add on more stuff to it. Well, I want to take it all off. I want to be like an onion and just peel that all off till I get to see the shiny little person that's in the middle. And, you know, like I can't see how some people can turn other people away because of what that person's still a person. That person still has a mother, still has a dad, even though they might not be here in this world, but they're human beings. How can anybody not accept a human being for what they have, even though it's not transmittable by different ways? I mean, yeah, I get real passionate about this. Yeah, no, the creator's door is always open. My door is always open. Yeah, you cry, I cry beside you. Yeah.
Renee, when you hear Linda speak this way, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel loved, and I feel like I belong somewhere. You know, I can remember the first person I met living with AIDS at the time, and you know, his wanting to have a sense of belonging. That's all he wanted. And you know, when he shared that he wasn't welcome back in his community and was left to fend for himself. You know, it saddened me, and just sparked a response on the way to this still to this day respond to people when they disclose their HIV, is that, you know, everyone wants to be loved, everybody wants to belong somewhere. And I think with the role of elders in this work is is a very important role they play, because they bring that knowledge from their own lives, from their own history, and that you know, with HIV, we can sometimes forget that that empathy, that we need to imagine ourselves in another person's shoes. So I always think about that when especially if I'm meeting somebody who is newly diagnosed or just struggling with life in general, you know, to remember remember your spirit, remember to take care of that, because that is where we get our center, and whatever spirit means to you, because it doesn't necessarily have to be God, creator. It could be something as simple as a tree, or the sun, the moon, whatever, something in nature. But it's important to take care of that spirit within yourself, so that you can, you know, feel that sense of connection. And so when I look to elders for guidance, I always feel that sense of connection to spirit, to creator. And so I'm so grateful, and grateful that we have Linda working with Elevate, and she works with us at OHAS from time to time. And it's always important to have that connection, so that we can um, um, continue to be supportive and continue to educate um, about HIV and everything that that it entails. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One last question. When we were preparing for this conversation, I was asking about some of the impacts, Linda, that you've seen in working with people who are living with HIV and having access to cultural teachings. You told a really beautiful story about a woman you were working with and a box. And I was wondering if you might tell us that story before we go.
She was, I shouldn't say was, she is. She's beautiful. Oh, just love her. But we were doing a project. It was an art project, and it was we got a little box. We each got boxes. Well, hers was a tiny little box, and when she got it, it was just plain. It had no color to it or nothing. And she opened the box and she was looking at it, and we had to think about what to put in it. So it took about 2-3 days, and then on the last day when we were done and we had to talk about the box, she said that at the beginning it was just a plain box, and she slowly every day she would slowly start painting it, and when she was done it was just a brown. She painted all brown all the way top bottom all the way around. It was just brown, and like we're going, well, you didn't do nothing to it, you know, like everybody else. They put little baubles or bling or your feathers or any pictures on it, and they painted it bright colors, but hers was just brown. And when she was talking about it, she says, this is me at the beginning. She says it was just plain, there was no color and nothing. She says, but now it's brown. And then she says, and then she opened it up, and when she opened it up, you looked inside and she made a flame. It was yellow, orange. It was just beautiful. It was bright, and inside was just like almost a yellow goldish color. And she says, now this is me now, you know. And she went to go on say at the beginning, when it was a brown box, because she was just by herself, right? She was alone. But now she opened a bright box and she says, this is me now, because I know I'm not alone and I know I'm not going to die, right? And that just resonates with me all the time. And yeah, now she's just plain brown box, but inside, oh, so beautiful. Just to know that you're not alone and that you're accepted by other people. Sure, they might have the same thing you have, but other people don't that are around you, right? And just to know that she's been accepted by family, and by what I mean by family is not even blood, right? So yeah, I'll carry that with me for ever and ever, and I'll just keep telling that beautiful story forever, because you're not alone. You betcha.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Linda. And thank you to you and Renee for joining me today on our final Welcoming Spaces discussion. I think that was just like such a beautiful and touching story to end on. I'm so appreciative of your time, for giving us the space to talk about these things. It's so important. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.